Right, welcome everybody to the Safer Recruitment in Adult Social Care, just to check that you are in the right meeting. It's my great pleasure to introduce our Skills for Care Regional Lead for LLR, Jen Langford, who's going to present to us today about safer employment in adult social care. So over to you, Jen.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you all for inviting me to speak with you this morning and for attending on such a warm morning as well. I'm sure we'd all rather be out in the garden with a glass of, I was going to say, I don't know, something cold, definitely, wouldn't it, or a nice lolly, but thank you for joining me. So as Michelle has said already, my name is Jen. I'm from Skills for Care, and I work across the Midlands team within Skills for Care in our locality teams. I've been asked, to talk to you today about safer employment in adult social care. I'm going to be covering quite a lot. There is an awful lot that I'm not covering because it's a huge area. There's so many different things and sort of specifics that we could look at within safer employment if we want to. But obviously there's a time limit this morning. So what am I going to be talking to you about today? Well, safer employment. So ultimately, what we all want to attract, is to attract and retain people with the right behaviours, the right attitude to work in our sector, but also whilst effectively identifying and managing any concerns that might relate to conduct. That, in a nutshell, is safer employment. So you all know within adult social care, we have much higher levels of vacancies than other sectors. We have higher than average turnover rates, but we also need to provide some really quality care and support for some of the most vulnerable people in our society. So it's quite a balancing act that we're working with when we're looking at employment and recruitment within social care. So we will see that employers start to seek different ways to become more innovative in recruitment sometimes and retention practices, all in that kind of aim to try and attract people with those right values to deliver high quality person-centred care and fill those gaps within the whole workforce that we've got. At the same time, as I've already said, we've got legal obligations and safeguarding responsibilities to ensure that everyone that you're employing within your organisation is a fit and proper person as well. So the question here is, how do we do our best to embed safer employment as regular practice within all of our organisations? And I'm sure we've all got loads and loads of different experiences and examples that we can think of when we talk about safer employment and employment in general. So personally, myself, before I joined Skills for Care, in my last role, I recruited a lot. So I recruited well over 100 specialist dementia nurses actually within my last role across both health and social care. But I am by no means an expert in recruitment, and I'm definitely not an expert in any of the kind of legalities around safer employment either. So why am I here today? Well, I'm here today because what I can share with you is what I have learnt over that journey. So I learnt how to refine my approach to embodying safer employment. I learned about the tools and resources which are available, and they're really important because there's so many tools and resources which are available to help all of you in your recruitment journeys. So let's start by thinking about why safer employment is so important. Has anyone got any ideas? And I am going to keep coming to you as a group. So has anyone got any ideas as to why you think safer employment is important? Just feel free to come off mute and shout out, or if you want to pop it in the chat, that's absolutely fine. Any thoughts why safer employment is important in our roles?
Because we work with some of the most vulnerable people in society.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Emma. Really important, isn't it? Because we need to get the right people into these roles. Any other ideas?
Hi, sorry, it's Julie here. I think that for me, safer employment's important because, for us as recruiters, and without sounding textbook, but we've got a duty of care. Like the other Emma was saying, we've got to make sure that that we get the right people, but also as well is that you want to try and retain the right people as well. So when you get the people in and give them the proper training and the onboarding and the right ongoing support and continuous training and supervision and spot checks, then hopefully in turn if you've got the right culture and things like that as well, hopefully in return you retain the right people. Because I think certainly for me, that's certainly what I've learned in my years working in this sector. It's really hard to retain, I would almost say, high caliber staff, because I don't think sometimes people who come to us, I don't think they appreciate or understand maybe that it is actually exceptionally vulnerable people that we are looking after, and it's heavily regulated, and it's not necessarily just taking somebody for a cup of tea and a piece of cake. You know, there's clear fundamentals in there as well, so I think that's important.
Thank you so much, Julian. I'm just wondering if you've seen my slides for today. So yeah, it's really important at that point of kind of recruitment, but also when we're looking at the whole employment journey. So safer employment encompasses everything from, you know, preparing to, you know, go out to recruitment, but also retaining, and actually almost past that as well, because it also looks at, you know, if someone moves to another employment, to another organisation, we need to be looking at the processes around that as well. So we're sharing information as part of that safer employment practice. But yeah, really, really valuable points there. And you touch on sort of values and understanding of the role as well, which are things that we're going to talk about. So let me share with you a list that I've put together. And hopefully this is, you know, what you're thinking about. So compliance. So obviously you've got legal and regulatory requirements. We are protecting vulnerable adults within adult social care. We need to ensure that the care that we're providing is high quality. We need to be able to be minimising the risk. Thinking about building that positive organisational culture. So again, if you've got the wrong people in, they're going to really, you know, disrupt your organisational culture. Looking at reducing staff turnover, so retention, Julie, like you've said. Maintaining public trust and confidence as well, because there's an outward facing element to all of the organisations that we're representing. Ensuring that you select the right person for the role is, you know, obvious, and making sure the process is fair as well. So, you know, you need to make sure that you're doing what you need, but also you need to be making sure that you're making that you're reducing any barriers, and making sure that that process is fair for everyone. And ensuring that relevant records are maintained is a big part of safer employment as well. I'm sure there's many other things I probably could have put up on this list, but it gives you an idea of what we're thinking about within safer employment. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? It's a massive subject, as I've already said. So I was trying to think about how we could package it into, you know, a sort of 60 to 90 minute sort of session for you this morning, to make sure that we're covering everything that is, you know, the real basics, but also giving you opportunity to think about a little bit more as well. So the focus for this session is going to be around what we call the PRISM model of safer employment. I don't know if any of you have heard of that before, but that's the model we're going to be looking at. So together we're going to explore the 6 stages of that model in more detail. A golden thread that runs throughout this model is what's known as the safeguarding mindset, and I'll explain that to you in a little bit more detail shortly. And we'll continually think about the safeguarding mindset throughout this session this morning. I'm going to briefly introduce you to the 2 main resources that I would suggest, or that I've used before, that can guide you. So they are the Safe and Fair Recruitment Guide and the Better Hiring Toolkit. And I'll share what those resources contain, and I'll show you sort of throughout the session where they can link in for you. And then your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to start working on your own personal safer employment action plan as we go through the slides together. So in the chat, you will find a Word document, really simple Word document, and it is an action plan which covers some of the things that we're going to be looking at today. So you can either try and, you know, open that on your laptops, your PCs, you can print it off if you've got a printer close by, or you can just open it and work on it. Or you can just make some scribbles. So if you've not got pen and paper, if you can get one, just because I'm going to ask you to be scribbling some thoughts down as we do go through this session with you this morning. We've got a lot to cover, so it is going to be quite fast paced. So yeah, hopefully you've got a cup of tea and you're sitting comfortably. Right, so the Better Hiring Toolkit. The Better Hiring Institute, they were formed following discussions between government and different industries with a mission to make hiring faster, fairer and safer. And then out of the work that they were doing, they produced a number of what they called better hiring toolkits. So this one specifically focuses on supporting the care sector. And you can see the logos that are on the screen underneath the booklet front page. And that's the sort of all the partners that were involved in collaborating to make this document what it is. So at the heart of the toolkit is the safety of the people who employers are entrusted to care for, and the staff who carry out this role. So Karen's saying you can't see the toolkit, so don't worry, I will give you an overview of it in a minute and you can make some scribbles instead, and apologies for that. So it supports employers to embed, sorry, I don't know if Michelle, you just took control or someone did, but so this it supports employers to embed a safeguarding mindset, the safeguarding mindset that I've already mentioned, at every part of the recruitment journey. So through from pre-recruitment through to managing leavers as well. The key sections can be seen on screen. So it's looking at legal responsibilities, the practicalities of how you gather information, what you can do with information and how you can share it with other people as well. And it's got loads and loads of links to other sources of information and useful templates. The toolkit uses the PRISM model, which we're going to look at. And that PRISM model is kind of embedded throughout, and it encompasses a 360-degree approach to safeguarding. The other main resource is the Safe and Fair Recruitment Guide, produced by Skills for Care. Again, it supports employers to think about all of your safer employment processes, from recruitment to retention to managing leavers as well. And then, as with the Better Hiring Toolkit, it gives you an overview of the PRISM model. It will signpost you to various different resources and tools to help you develop and have that safer employment practice within your organisation. Again, on screen here, I've just listed some of those key sections. So covers everything from sort of the law and recruiting people with convictions, assessing risk and relevance, overseas criminal record checks, all of these kind of different things, a number of templates for you to use as well within the guide. Michelle, yes, I'm aware that I think I've attached a link which is not accessible for you, but I will go through it again for you shortly. So I've been invited to speak to you today by Inspired to Care, and it would be really remiss if I didn't mention the guide that Inspired to Care have also created around safer recruitment in adult social care. Another really fabulous resource, and it helps you to ensure that the recruitment processes are robust, that safeguarding is prioritised, and that only suitable qualified individuals are employed to work with vulnerable adults. So again, I would recommend you go and have a look at this guide. I will share these slides with you following, and you will be able to link to all of the links, so access all of the links which are within the slide set for you. So today we're going to focus mainly on the Better Hiring Toolkit and the Safe and Fair Recruitment Guide, purely because they both have the PRISM model and that safeguarding mindset embedded throughout. Okay. I've mentioned this PRISM model of safer employment a few times now, so I'm going to show you exactly what it is. So essentially, it supports you from planning recruitment all the way through to managing leavers. It will encourage you to embed this safeguarding mindset at every stage of the employment journey. So you can see on screen here the 6 different stages. So planning to recruit, recruitment and vetting, induction and probation, supervising and managing, identifying and managing concerns, and then the final one, managing leavers and referring information. Has anyone heard of a safeguarding mindset before? Nope. Can't see anyone saying that they had. Okay, right. So because I'm talking about this a lot, it's fair that I tell you what a safeguarding mindset is. It's really simple. The safeguarding mindset is the difference between compliance and curiosity. So it's combining the two. And we know from many different sort of inquiries and serious case reviews that actually a culture of compliance alone doesn't keep people safe. Where we see curious organisations, so excuse me, when something doesn't seem right, organisations that will go and seek additional information. organisations that will go on to validate or to challenge their observations. And this means they'll have the evidence that they need to make the decision right, to make that right decision, because they're not just going on compliance, they're also going on curiosity. They're, you know, thinking something doesn't seem quite right. I need to gather more information. I need to find out more. It is everyone's responsibility in an organisation to help safeguard. You know that. We work within adult social care. So when you are looking at recruiting, we need to be curious when planning. So planning the recruitment and employment process and understanding what the safeguarding risks are. So for each role that you're recruiting to, for example, you need to think about, well, what are the safeguarding risks? You know, what do I need to think about in terms of, you know, all these different factors for this role in particular. So you need to ensure that, you know, relevant information can be asked for on references, the relevant evidence of, you know, conduct can be gathered and recorded all throughout that recruitment process. And the PRISM model supports you to move beyond compliance. So it will encourage you to be curious about your own organisational culture, about your approach to gathering and recording and sharing conduct information, for example, and, you know, everyone's responsibilities. It will keep reminding you to check these at every stage of the way. So keep hold of this safeguarding mindset and what we mean by it. So compliance and curiosity, because that's going to be, you know, fundamental as we go through the rest of this session this morning. Okay, this is what I was hoping to have shared for you in the chat. So it's a little bit of a snapshot of what that plan looks like. So if you aren't able to access it, which it seems that no one can, so apologies for that, what I want you to be thinking about at each kind of section of this session is what you're already doing well. So when I'm talking about different things, are you already doing it? And if you are, that's fabulous. Jot it down. Are you evidencing it though? You know, so if you're doing it, brilliant. Are you evidencing it? Because if not, it's kind of becomes almost irrelevant, doesn't it? If someone comes to you afterwards and says, can you tell me how you've done something? Think about what gaps you have. And then also, and probably most importantly, what actions you might want to take. So if you can all just, you know, jot that down, and perhaps Michelle, you could just share those questions in the chat for me if you're able to. So what you do well, how you're evidencing it, what gaps you have, and what actions you might want to take. Okay, it's your action plan. It's up to you to decide what you do with it. It's up to you to decide what's relevant for your organisations as well. But it's just a guide for you, so that hopefully, if, you know, by the end of this hour or so, you will have an idea about what you might need to do next. Okay, so this is the first stage of the PRISM model, so planning to recruit. Taking time to apply that safeguarding mindset when you plan your recruitment process is actually really quite important, because it can help you to do certain things. It can help you to understand the responsibilities and safeguarding risks of the role that is being recruited to, because they're different. Not every role will have those same safeguarding risks. It will help you to identify the skills, the values, behaviours and attitudes that someone needs to do that role safely and effectively. And again, they're different. And it will help you to gather the relevant information on things like your application form, your interview process, in references, or in your vetting checks as well. So some of the ways that you can apply that safeguarding mindset, there's some thoughts on screen here for you. So are you at the moment ensuring that everyone is aware of their safeguarding responsibilities? So everyone that's involved in that recruitment process, are they aware of their safeguarding responsibilities? Have they got that safeguarding mindset? Do they know to, you know, not just rely on compliance, that actually sometimes they need to be more curious about what's being presented to them? And do they know how to apply that mindset when making what needs to be safe, fair, inclusive recruitment decisions? Do you carry out a risk assessment of the role to identify risk factors and the conduct required of people in the post and the appropriate level of vetting for the post as well? Or do you just do the same thing for every single person, every single role that you're recruiting to? And for some of you, that will be fine. But for some of you, you need to be thinking a little bit more in detail about that. So tailoring your reference request, so you know, asking for specific conduct information relevant to the posts that you're recruiting for. Take into account safeguarding risks and responsibilities for each of those roles. I'm hoping that you review your job descriptions and person specs to ensure that they are firstly up to date and accurate, but also that they're really clear around the safeguarding responsibilities and expectations of code of conduct and behaviour and things within each of those roles as well. And something that was touched upon just when we were having a discussion earlier is you know, clearly articulating and sharing your vision, values and culture of your organisation. And if you're doing this in advance, you're actually giving potential recruits that opportunity to self-select whether they think their values and behaviours align with your expectations. And if they don't, they might not apply. Or if they do, they can make sure that they are, you know, really evidencing that as part of their application process. So it becomes, you know, much fairer and much more sort of clear, transparent application process as well. So other things that you can do to apply that safeguarding mindset when you're planning to recruit is when you're thinking about your adverts, your information packs, your application forms, do you make clear to candidates the vetting checks and the referencing information that's required as part of that recruitment process? You might potentially put people off if they go, oh, they're going to get me to, you know, give some references, and I'm sure you all do that. But, you know, if you're very clear about the vetting process and the importance of this as part of your recruitment process, you're putting in some extra steps there as well. I don't know if any of you use any recruitment agencies, but if you do, you need to make sure that they also share that same safeguarding mindset, that they also have robust processes in place for vetting, particularly in relation to references and sharing conduct information too. Regularly reviewing and updating your relevant safer recruitment and vetting policies and procedures. So ensure that they are sort of everything is effective and compliant with the latest legislation and regulation. And then include your code of conduct in your employee contract. So if you're not doing that, that's something that you can think about doing, because this will actually make it much easier to raise any concerns with staff if behaviour falls below what's expected, that from day one, they've had your code of conduct included within their employee contract. Okay, at each stage of this PRISM model, I have a slide which has got loads and loads of different resources to support you. This will be, you know, at the end of each of these sections. So for this one, we're looking at the Safer Recruitment Employment Checklist, which is available for you. The Safe and Fair Recruitment Guide has got things like an example safe and fair recruitment policy. And then the Better Hiring Toolkit has got things like example statements that set out safeguarding expectations. There's various different checklists and editable templates as well, and also advice around using recruitment agencies at this stage of the employment process. So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for you to signpost you to all the resources which are available. Okay, that is the first stage of the PRISM model. So that is planning to recruit. I'm going to ask, I don't know how well this is going to go down, because it's a quiet group this morning, rightly so, on a very hot Monday morning, but has anyone got anything that they've written down as part of their action plan so far? Would anyone like to share anything? This could be something that you already feel you do well, or it might be something that you've written down as an action. Just interested to hear if anyone could share anything with the group.
So I'm happy to say that I do, because I'm the only one that recruits in my team. We do review job descriptions before we go out to recruit. But one of the, I think, better practices, actually reviewed it with the person that was leaving. So as a team, we got together and asked the person who was leaving, does this reflect your job? Is there anything that we need to take out? Anything that we need to put in? Because that's also a good way of getting a bit of an interview. And as a result, Ada, your job description stayed the same.
Excellent. And I'm hoping that Aveda came in and it was very clear what she thought she was going to be doing. So the expectations match what happens when you arrive on day one, or, you know, when you're going through your induction period. Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else want to share anything? Has anyone got an action that they've written down? Even if it's something like, I'm going to go and have a look at this resource which you've told me about.
Well, I'm going to go and have a look at your idea of including the code of conduct in the contract, because we've got one, but we don't do that now. So that's an action point for us to have a look at.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vicky. Okay, right. I'm going to move on. So this is the next stage, recruitment and vetting. So at this stage of the employment process, we're thinking about how to, oh, it sounds awful, doesn't it? But how to deter and prevent those that we think might be unsuitable from securing a role within people, working, sorry, with people drawing on tech care and support, because we need to get the right people. We've already established that. But we also want to remove any barriers and attract a wider talent pool as well. So it's not just, you know, stopping people, it's stopping the people who aren't appropriate, but also looking at, you know, who else could be appropriate that we haven't really considered so far. And widening your talent pool is something that I could do a whole different workshop on that, but it's something which is really important as part of safer employment. We're looking at identifying applicants who share your workplace values and commitment to safeguarding. This will reduce the time and resources that you can potentially waste on recruiting the wrong people, which is a really, really expensive process if you don't get it right. Expensive, frustrating, you know, all of the impact that it has on your organisation when you haven't got that right person in. Understanding people's values, behaviour and mindset as well. So through a range of different lenses, increasing both the inclusivity and safeguarding focus of your recruitment process. So essentially this stage is all about how to vet your applicants, attracting the right people and deterring those who are perhaps less suitable. So how we can apply a safeguarding mindset within this. So here's a few tips for you. So firstly, ensuring that all staff involved in recruitment have had training in safer recruitment, you know, understanding what we mean by safer recruitment, you know, even if it's a case of signposting them to different resources and say, you know, read up on this, this is what we mean when we're talking about safer recruitment, safer employment. You might want to utilise Skills for Care Safe and Fair Recruitment Guide to help you with that. So you can use that to ensure processes meet statutory and regulatory requirements. So if you're not sure whether your processes do this, this guide will help you. Encouraging candidates to self-disclose any relevant information about their criminal record, about past conduct, and about suitability for the post during the recruitment process, and giving the candidates the opportunity to discuss and share their perspective on any information shared, because what you need is the curiosity around that, don't you? So we've got the compliance, you're getting them to disclose what it is that they might need to disclose, but actually you want to have that curiosity side of something. What were the details around, you know, something which might come up on their reference? What were the details around a past conviction, for example? That's the important part. The Better Hiring Institute has a sharing effective references and conduct information toolkit, which is really useful as well. There are a range of values-based recruitment and selection tools that can help you to gather relevant information about the candidates' values, their behaviours, their conduct, their attitude to safeguarding, and that will help you to assess if they are suitable for the role. Don't be scared to use information gathered to further explore those concerns with candidates before they join your workforce. So actively encouraging that culture of curiosity about information is, you know, really important, and it's absolutely fine to do that. Ask questions, ask more questions, keep doing it. Where you do get any kind of negative or adverse information shared with you, carry out a risk assessment. Give candidates the opportunity to share their perspective, like I've already said. And then we've got about, you know, recording and storing information on successful and unsuccessful candidates. So don't just bin your paperwork if someone isn't appointed. I'm sure none of you do that, but paperwork needs to be recorded in a format that can be shared, if appropriate, for successful and unsuccessful candidates. And then regularly reviewing the effectiveness of recruitment and vetting policies which you've got in place, and also the decisions that you've come to identify any kind of learning and opportunities to change and improve your practice. Again, lots of resources to help you here. There's also more specific resources around sort of DBS and overseas recruitment, for example, at this stage as well. How many of you have heard of values? Actually, how many of you have got a values-based recruitment process? Okay, Michelle's got a values-based recruitment process. Anyone else? Or maybe you're a little bit unsure as to what we mean by values-based recruitment. Josiah, you've got a values-based recruitment process. Excellent. Does anyone want to share what that looks like? Josiah, could you tell us what your value-based recruitment process looks like? You're going to regret putting your hand up now.
Yeah, no, it's all right. So we've really kind of looked at the interview questions mainly. So trying to go away from just kind of yes, no, kind of tell me like answers to kind of tell me a situation where you've been in this, or tell me a time when this has happened. But then taking like the surface level answer and then trying to dig down a bit more. So why was it you felt that way? Why did you do that? What was it about that situation that had such an impact on you? So just trying to use the interview process, because interviews are, I mean, I find them quite difficult sometimes to really know the kind of candidate you're actually interviewing, because anyone can say anything in an interview and it's really hard to actually know the person behind the answers. So it's a good way of really digging down and just trying to find out that little bit more. So I think we've been using them about 6 years now, and they have made a big difference.
Excellent. So really digging down and sort of going under the skin and finding out a little bit more. And you're right. So I can give an example actually of this. So when I was recruiting for as a Band 8 specialist nurse within a private care home, so I didn't work in that private care home. I was almost kind of consulting on the recruitment process for them. And we interviewed this nurse, and if I said she scored 100%, I was not lying. She had every single answer, you know, down to a T. We ticked every box. It was fabulous. We all sort of were left a little bit dumbfounded at the end of it, thinking, wow, that's like literally, you know, textbook interview. But there was something about the interview afterwards that I sat there and I said, she's amazing. Like, you know, she could have written the interview questions herself because she's answered them that well. But I don't think I'd want her to be my nurse or my mum's nurse or my grandma's nurse. And that was concerning. And we needed to understand why. And actually, because we didn't have a values-based recruitment process at that point, the person was appointed. They weren't particularly well managed by that provider organisation. They passed their probation, even though there was lots of different kind of issues that were coming up around their values and around their behaviours. And it was a very difficult process. And she was performance managed in the end, but it was outside of the probation period and it was very, very difficult. I went back to the organisation that I was working for and immediately implemented a values-based recruitment process at that stage. And it meant that actually someone could get 100% in their interview in terms of the questions we were asking them to demonstrate their clinical abilities. But if they scored below a certain mark with regards to their values and their behaviours and their kind of attitudes, they would not be appointed. And it has made a huge, huge difference in the way that I've looked at recruitment after that. So values-based recruitment is an evidence-based approach that enables you to understand someone's values, their behaviours, their attitudes, and assess whether they align with your own values and culture and expectations within your own workplace. I'm going to share, this is perhaps not the best video, but I'm going to share this video with you just to give you a little bit more of an insight into values-based recruitment. If you want to know anything else about values-based recruitment, there are loads and loads of resources on the Skills for Care website. We've got everything from kind of like, you know, snapshots and little videos and sort of toolkits and things free. I used to be part of the delivery team within Skills for Care, and we used to deliver day-long workshops around values-based recruitment as well, but that's part of our commissioned product, so that it's a paid-for product, but you are very welcome to go along and have a look at that if it's something you would like to embed within your organisations. But I wanted to include values-based recruitment because it is a very important part of safer employment, and getting those attitudes and values and behaviours right from the start will help you along that safer employment journey, right, you know, for the duration of having someone within your organisation. So there are some really strong links between values-based recruitment and safe recruitment and employment. So go and have a look. If you don't feel like you are already demonstrating values-based recruitment within your organisations, or as perhaps sort of well as you could do, then have a look at some of those resources. And I think Michelle has popped one of the links in the chat for you now. So the last link on the screen, when you do get your slides, takes you through to sort of the main website with all of those there. Excuse me. So, okay, that's the end of the recruitment and vetting section. Would anyone like to share anything that they've captured so far in that section? Any thoughts around what you might want to do next to make sure that you're embedding that safeguarding mindset within recruitment and vetting? No problem. We will move on to the next one. We can have time at the end to talk through if you want. So stage 3 of the PRISM model. Effective induction and probation. Having that effective induction and probation period has a really crucial role in setting clear safeguarding expectations and ensuring new staff can really thrive in their roles. So you will know how important induction is to make sure that you're shaping people within their roles. So having, you know, really clear expectations of conduct and attitude and behaviour throughout this period, and then also applying that magical safeguarding mindset. So not just kind of ticking the boxes. So, well, we've told them that we've got a code of conduct and we've, you know, shown it to them. Actually using that curiosity, you know, whether that means testing them, whether asking questions around, well, what does that mean to you? Or, you know, have you got experience of something like this? Go and ask those further questions, because if you get it right at the beginning, it's a lot easier to manage it throughout the rest of the journey. And you want new recruits who are clear, who know what's expected of them, not just in terms of their roles and their remit, but also in terms of their conduct and their behaviour. You want to be able to identify any concerns or any areas of improvement at an early stage, because then you can manage issues before they escalate. And you also want to make sure that you're recording all of this information, you know, specifically about conduct and concerns, and then it can be appropriately shared if required as well. So some tips on how to apply that safeguarding mindset: developing and embedding a code of conduct and sharing it with your new recruits as part of the offer of employment, you know, documentation. So as early as possible. So like we said earlier, you know, when they get that employment contract, share it then. They've got it. They can start to digest it. They can start to understand what's expected of them. Having a clear set of induction standards and that induction plan, which all managers are responsible for following with new recruits. So making sure that there's that, you know, really, really clear plan in place. And have an emphasis on expected conduct, on things like boundaries, safeguarding, sharing of concerns as well. So, for example, I've heard of provider organisations who have given their candidates an induction booklet which they fill in with their supervisors. So they are essentially seeing if their role lines up to what they were expecting, and they were kind of tracking their own process. So they're taking a little bit of accountability for that within, you know, the induction. Providing new staff with relevant training on safeguarding and safer working practices. So that's including, you know, appropriate conduct. That's including living your values and your behaviours within their work. Putting in place probationary periods for all new recruits, and I'm sure you will do that. But having that process for managing people within their probationary period, carrying out your regular one-to-ones, making sure that all conduct or performance or development needs are discussed at least monthly. Really, really important. And I'm sure you do that, but you need to make sure that that's done at regular interviews as part of a plan. Identifying and sharing any concerns about conduct of individuals during their induction and probationary period in a timely manner. So giving them an opportunity to address concerns and improve their performance. So don't just record something and not do anything about it. Don't involve that member of staff in those discussions. Make sure that you're transparent, that you're open, and that everyone has a chance to improve on their performance when it is raised. Recording any conduct or safeguarding concerns within the induction and probationary period, so detailing all of the evidence, putting training and support in place, improvements and actions that are taken, again, recording all of this and documenting it and giving opportunities. Some of you might have been through this, I know I have, so extending probationary periods where there might be concerns, and that's concerns about conduct in post. Give them the opportunity, as I've said already, to improve, support them as closely as possible, but monitor and manage that conduct. So has anyone else extended probationary periods? Yeah, I think it's quite common, isn't it? And it's really good that we are using that as an opportunity, and it actually is fair for the employee as well. It's a fair process for everyone. And then using that probationary period final review to decide on whether you're going to continue with that individual or not. And if not, you can obviously have some information and you've got everything recorded already.
Jen, I think Josiah actually wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I've just seen for a while. Yeah, sorry, Josiah, I've just seen that your hand is raised.
No, it's fine. Sorry, just on your previous slide, you talked about the kind of employees filling in their own kind of induction log. Is that kind of like, for example, taking the skills for care certificate standards and getting them to kind of reflect on and write down what kind of example have people used before? Because I quite like putting the onus a bit more on you, rather than it being kind of it's not passive process, but like making it it's an active process from them rather than just a feedback from us.
Yeah. I don't have an actual example to share. It's just I've heard of lots of people who have involved them, so that it's almost turning it on its head, isn't it? So this is your induction, this is all the information that you need, but actually you're in the driving seat as much as your line manager might be. So it's that active involvement, like you say. So they are able to sort of raise concerns, they are able to ask questions, they're able to say, well, actually I kind of thought this might be something different. It's fine that it's not, but can you explain a little bit to me more around that area, for example? So it is what you want it to be, but I think the example really is that involving your new member of staff so that they have that active participation and they are part of the process, rather than feeling like someone else is answering those questions on their behalf, that a box is being ticked without their involvement. Does that help, Josiah?
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So this is, kind of in a nutshell, making sure that you are having conversations, that you are documenting, that you are using induction and probation for what it is meant for. It can be extended, it can be flexed. Someone doesn't have to pass probation. It's a difficult conversation. I've been there. Luckily not on the receiving end of it, but people haven't always passed probation when they've been within my teams, and it's been for good reasons, and they've been part of that process. And if you're being transparent and open along your journey, and you're documenting and recording, operating that safeguarding mindset, so being compliant but curious, you've got your evidence there, and you are working in that very much sort of safer employment model. So as ever, resources that are available to support you. So there's things like the Skills for Care Managers induction toolkit as well. So again, that's a really, really useful resource for you. And I know Inspired to Care also have an inclusive recruitment toolkit and a safer recruitment toolkit, which is useful. There's work around sort of the national induction for health and social care. So Skills for Care and NHS England have created free to access induction materials for anyone that's new to role in health and social care. So again, really useful information for you. There's virtual learning modules, there's resources to support new starters. So lots and lots of things that you can access. Okay. Have any of you identified actions within that section? Are you perhaps going to go away and think about how you include your new member of staff in that induction process, like we've just talked about with Josiah? Any thoughts? Do any of you think that you are doing everything that you need to be doing?
I think that it's just Julie here. I think that for me, I'm fairly confident that we're doing things well, but I always kind of live life in health and social care that every day is a school day. And I always think there's always kind of room for improvement. So I think what I will do is you certainly gave some additional resources here. So obviously I'll review and update the team from what you've given, Jen, to be able to go back to our recruitment team and just make sure that they've got all of this and get them to review the action plans that you've given, just to ensure that we're not missing anything. Because I think sometimes, even although you're reviewing, I think it's always nice to dip into these types of things, because you've got lots of different people. You've got lots of different people. Yeah, okay. You've got lots of different people with various skills and experience on the training today. So it's always nice to link in to see what other people are doing too.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And I think that's a really valid point, isn't it? So I'm aware, we've got a lot of experience, we've got a lot of, skills and knowledge within this group. If you've been recruiting in social care for a while, you'll have had lots of hiccups along the way. We've all learned from the things which haven't gone quite right, haven't we? And we all, continue to refine what we're doing and, look at better ways, improvements that we can make, no matter how small they might be. I think for me today is an opportunity for you to kind of really reflect and to think about, actually, if you leave here today and you think, do you know what, I'm confident, if we look at that PRISM model, we are following in all the basics that we need to, but actually let's just go and have a look at that toolkit. Or let me just actually pass this toolkit to other line managers who may not have been, potentially exposed to it before, who they might just be, a part of a recruitment panel, so they don't actually have to take on all of the responsibility of the recruitment process. They're part of that panel. But as I said earlier, we've all got that responsibility around safeguarding, haven't we? And we've all got that responsibility to make sure that we're comfortable with who we are appointing and how we're appointing them and how we're managing them through that initial induction and probation period as well. It might be, for example, that you want some information more about supporting induction of international recruits, for example. And so therefore you can look at, different information, and you've got East Midlands international recruitment, and again, lots and lots of resources and advice available if you need it around that as a specific kind of example. Okay, so supervision and management. So this can really help build that positive and supportive working environment. We need to make sure that we are providing safe and effective care, and that you've got teams who are able to drive forward improvements as well. So it's really important, as you know, to prioritise time to do that supervision, to meet with your staff, to have those supportive, reflective, value-based conversations as part of this journey. So supervision and management will help you to identify any safeguarding or any other concerns at that early stage, so before things escalate. It's going to help you to support, develop and hold employees to account for any performance and conduct. And it holds a really important role around accurately recording supervision and performance management and different conversations, so that information can be appropriately shared and referred to other organisations if you need to as well. So again, ways to apply that safeguarding mindset. Putting in place and communicating clear, up-to-date policies, procedures, standards, guidance around effective supervision and performance management of staff. So making sure those responsible for supervision and management know what those policies and procedures are and they're able to follow them. Discussing performance values, behaviours, everything, from wellbeing to safeguarding and conduct and everything, through regular cycle of conversations. So not just at an annual performance appraisal, regularly throughout the year. So training is obviously important. So making sure that your managers know how to carry out an effective supervision, know how to identify and discuss safeguarding and conduct concerns as part of that. And also supporting and developing managers and all of your teams actually to be able to have those challenging, those courageous and those compassionate conversations which are values based. So focusing not just on what staff do, but also how they perform in their role, not just what they do, how they do it, why they do it that way. Putting in place your regular supervision. So we've talked about supervisions already, but they should be at least once a month. They should be face to face or virtually. They're not kind of over email, for example. And where a risk assessment has identified at recruitment or vetting stage anything above and beyond what you would expect, additional supervision should be put in place. So any risk assessment, identifying risks, put in additional supervision. Ensuring managers spend time observing people within their work, so gathering evidence of performance and conduct throughout the year, but also make sure that they're celebrating and recognising the good as well as addressing the poor performance. So let's not get hung up on, safer recruitment is always, wheedling out the bad things, the negative things. It's not. We need to celebrate good performance, and we need to, really kind of embed that positive culture and look at things like everyday leadership as well within your teams. So encouraging employees to openly reflect on their values, their behaviours, their conduct, throughout all of their supervisions and performance management conversations, and encouraging them to be able to ask for support and guidance as and where needed. And as always, recording good quality notes. So, share them with the employee. It's not just a case of you put them away in your filing cabinet or your, sort of desktop area. They need to be shared with your employee if they're about them, and they should be then stored confidentially. So your resources here are things like your effective supervision guide. So there's several templates and checklists. The people performance management toolkit, which was developed in partnership with NHS employers, is a good one to look at. So this toolkit highlights the importance of supervision, and it's got lots of scenarios and further resources which you can look at in there. And also ACAS, they've got a resource around challenging conversations and how to manage them. Okay. I'm not going to ask you again whether there's anything that you would like to share, but that's the end of that supervision management action planning section. So make some notes for yourself if there's anything that you would like to do for that section. Okay, so we're almost at the end of this PRISM model. We've got 2 sections to go. So identifying and managing concerns about safeguarding conduct and behaviour is going to help you safeguard the people that are drawing on your care and support. So we've got to make sure that you are identifying and you are managing concerns that are raised. So having an open culture where everyone feels supported and trained to respond to any concerns can really promote consistency. It can promote, that feeling of transparency and fairness, and make sure that everyone feels respected as well. So all of that can help you to ensure that concerns about safeguarding conduct or behaviour are identified, they're shared and they're recorded at the earliest possibility. And I would say that should also include any low-level concerns, any of those kind of gut feelings, those nagging doubts. Make sure that you identify and you record, or you share them, or you do what you need to do, because there'll be examples, I'm sure, amongst the group where you've kind of thought, oh, if only I'd listened to my gut, if only I'd sort of, actually noted that kind of nagging sort of thing that was there at the back of my mind, and I didn't, and then I've missed an opportunity to actually identify and manage something. Safeguard all of those that you're providing care and support to through reducing the likelihood of and opportunity for harm from those working with them. that's our responsibility, isn't it? And that kind of drills home a part of, you know, why we're doing this and why we're thinking about these safer employment processes. Providing appropriate support to all staff and anyone who shares concerns about themselves or others. So again, some tips on how to apply that safeguarding mindset. So create and stress the importance of an open culture where the reporting of concerns is actually encouraged and supported. We don't want, you know, a culture within your organisations where people think, I don't really want to raise it because I'm not sure how it will go down. That whole, if you've not really been on the active bystander training, it's not skills for carers, you know, within Leicestershire, really important sort of areas that are discussed within that training. So people need to feel able to raise concerns. Policies and procedures around sharing concerns, whether it be low level, whether it's allegations against staff, whether it's whistleblowing. So making sure that all of your teams know how to go through those policies and procedures, how do they respond and report any concerns that they might have. Ensuring information about how to identify and raise concerns is available and accessible and easy to understand for people who are drawing on your care and support as well, and encouraging them to be able to share concerns. And then obviously having a disciplinary and grievance policy which complies to all of the things like your ACAS code of practice, for example, and allows you to carry out those formal disciplinaries or grievances investigations if you need to do so. Training, so your managers need to be able to know how to effectively carry out investigations into any allegations or concerns, and they need to be able to apply that safeguarding mindset. So if you've got managers who don't know how to do that, you need to make sure that they are empowered to be able to. Identifying and training a designated person for safeguarding, I'm sure you already have that already, but that needs to include sort of investigations and management of safeguarding concerns within your staff team as well. So completing relevant detailed records of concerns raised or investigations or actions taken, kept in a confidential file, of course. And then supporting leaders to display what we've already mentioned earlier, that courageous leadership in tackling and managing concerns. So not being scared to go and do something about it. Again, resources to support you are here, various different things which might be of use. Okay, the last stage of the model is managing levers and sharing safeguarding conduct information. And that could be with anyone, you know, that is appropriate. And this is going to help you contribute to creating that safer environment for everyone, but, you know, most essentially for people drawing on care and support, because if it's not the people drawing on your care and support, it's people drawing on other services, care and support, which could be, you know, at risk here. So we should all be, you know, courageously and fairly and compassionately managing our levers and applying that safeguarding mindset to any information which we are passing on. And in doing so, hopefully you should capture and record all of the information relevant to employment conduct in a way that enables it to be shared at a future date. So, you know, making sure that you've identified when and where and whom it's relevant to, sorry. It might be that you need to provide information around DBS or to other organisations, you know, detailed information to fulfil your duty to safeguard others. Ensuring individuals are aware of the information that will be shared about their conduct. So this again should be a transparent process. You know, this information will be shared with anyone who asks for a reference about you, and providing any opportunity for discussion. Showing your wider commitment to safeguarding beyond your own workplace and that you're not relying on others to make the referral. And by this, we mean that essentially if you don't do it, who will? You know, we need to make sure that we're not just kind of making assumptions about where that information will come from. So some top tips on how to apply that safeguarding mindset when managing information about any levers that you have. So I hope that you've all got that exit process in place. So capturing and recording information that is relevant to the individual's employment at the point that they leave you. And I've put in brackets here that it should be involving those with the first-hand knowledge of their conduct and performance. So if you are going to provide information as part of that, sort of referral process, then actually it should be by people who know. It should be, from their line manager. It shouldn't just be from HR if you're going to provide information. Ensuring investigations and disciplinaries are relevant to conduct and safeguarding are carried out and they are concluded at the stage when the individual is leaving. So even if an individual resigns before the end of the process, that process still needs to be concluded in some way, shape or form. Ensuring that leaders understand the importance of and are committed to sharing and referring relevant conduct information. So again, just getting everyone on board. This is all of our responsibility to, to share this information and decide what's relevant. And then putting in place a policy for sharing information and training managers and staff on how and on who, and how safeguarding and conduct information can be effectively shared. So that's internally and externally. So you should have a policy around sharing information. And then, those members of staff who are involved in that need to have some kind of training around what they can and can't do. If you are using agencies and agency staff, then you need to make sure that you're sharing any relevant information about conduct or safeguarding concerns with that agency, in line, obviously, with any agreed protocols that you would have. Taking responsibility for referring relevant information about conduct or safeguarding concerns. So please never assume that someone else is going to do it. It is your responsibility, just as much as everyone else's responsibility, but do not assume if something needs to be shared, you need to do it. You need to make sure that you are that person, or that you are 100% sure that the other person who's agreed to do it has. Sharing relevant conduct information and safeguarding concerns with other employees when providing references as part of a commitment to your safeguarding. And then the final one here is obviously making sure that you're adhering to any UK GDPR compliance for your systems for recording decisions, and also your rationale of sharing information as well. So as always, and this is your last resource for the PRISM model, some wonderful sort of sources of information are available for you. So for example, here we've got an employee exit information record template that you could use, and the Better Hiring Toolkit has an example exit process as well. So if you've not got something formalised, go and have a look at these resources, because you can use the templates which are already made available for you. Okay. So final steps, using your action plans. So I know you haven't been able to access the actual template today, but we will share that with you. If you want to, if you think it would be useful, look through that action plan and think about, what else do you need to do? Who else do you need to involve, for example? Are there any sort of specific known areas for you? So that might be around, a DBS question. It could be your legal obligations. You might be thinking about, recruiting someone with a conviction, for example. Maybe you need to consider your induction process to be able to support international recruits. Perhaps you need to source specific training for your organisation in a number of different areas. So they're the sort of things that you can think about within your action plans. Identifying those gaps in knowledge. There is so much more that we could talk about within safer employment, and you may have come along today and thought, oh, I thought we were going to cover X, Y, Z, and perhaps we haven't, but this is an example of the model that you can use throughout your threads, to make sure that you are compliant and curious at every stage of your employment recruitment process within your organisations. But there's loads more that we could obviously share with you. So widening your talent pool, for example, is something that I love talking about, but it's a whole new conversation. But you need to decide for yourselves what your own gaps in knowledge are. We will share with these slides, obviously, and you have all of the sort of different resources that we've linked to. There's lots of guidance, there's lots of support that is available for you. Skills for Care website I've mentioned, but we also have webinars that we do. We always do 2 webinars a year, so one on disclosure and one on barring. And then this year we've also got some additional specific webinars planned around, disclosure and bar and safer employment. I don't know what those specific subjects matters are yet, but keep an eye on our website, on our events page, and you'll find out a little bit more. Inspired to Care have got some fabulous resources around safer employment and around lots of more detailed information as well. And I'd say use your local networks. So if you're not part of the registered manager network for Leicestershire and Rutland, that's a good way to get involved if you're a registered manager. If you are a HR professional, then Skills for Care also have a HR network. Same for if you're a nominated individual or deputy manager. We've got lots of different networks available that can support you, and you can access lots and lots of information. And then the final thing that I'm going to say to you today, for the last time, I promise you, is just to remember to keep that safeguarding mindset. So stay compliant and stay curious, and it will really, really help you to embed a safer employment journey. We have